up your hearts, young men, let nothing fright you. Be of a gallant mind, let that delight you. Let not your courage fail till after trial, nor let your fancy move at the first denial. One day a gallant youth did cross the ocean to free America from her invasion. He landed at Quebec with all his party, the city to attack, both brave and hearty.
You have lost. You lost. The mistake that you made is you let us in the first place. See, that's the thing with brown people. And I'm going to say this as a brown person. There's a lot of us. Like a lot. There's like 1.2 billion in India. There's more than 200 million in Pakistan. There's like 170 million in Bangladesh. Those are just the people there. I'm even talking about the folks who are expats or immigrants. There's a bunch of us. And we breed. We're a breeding people. And the problem is you let us in 1965. There were a few of us beforehand. But once you let one of us in, you know what happens with brown folks? Our grandmother comes, our grandfather comes, our uncle comes, our aunt comes, our cousin comes, our second cousin comes, our third cousin comes. Then we have kids, a bunch of kids. And then guess what? Some white women, you know, the Western civilization women, the pure women, the American women, quote unquote, the Rust Belt women, the real women, they like some of us brown folks. We don't take them. They come to us. So we're embedded. We are everywhere. We are everywhere. I've traveled this country. I'm going to speak as a brown person. Brown people are everywhere. There will be a Patel motel or there will be a Desi restaurant everywhere. I want you to realize this. You have lost. Your story is a shitty story filled with misery. It's filled with bland chicken. It's filled with terrible, terrible dry-ass meat. Your music sucks. All your culture sucks. Nobody, that's why the kids like listen to black people and their music. That's why the kids love Latinos. Your parties suck because they're monochromatic. Our parties have better food, better music, better looking women.
Wake up, America, rise and freedom. Picture this, Bradford, England. Fiona Goddard was 14 years old, living in a children's home when Muslims started picking her up. They took her out, passed her around, and then dropped her back. She went to her carers, and then she went to the police for help, and she kept going back for 5 years while the officers looked at a 14-year-old being traded between grown men and wrote her down as the problem. A child prostitute, they called her. She's the one putting working class men in danger. 9 of the men who used her went to prison in 2019. She counts 50 to 100 who walked. She says all of it now under her own name, which is more than her own country managed for the better part of 20 years. Fiona is just one file out of 250,000. This week, Rupert Lowe, who is an independent member of parliament, put out a 219-page inquiry into the rest of these girls. This inquiry was survivor-led. It was funded by more than 20,000 ordinary Britons because the government refused to do it. Now, the number that it lands on, at least 250,000 girls, mostly white, mostly working class, raped and trafficked over decades by gangs made up overwhelmingly of men of Pakistani Muslim heritage. Across 149 council districts, this goes back to the 1950s. The government's own Casey audit had already conceded that the ethnicity out of 2 of every 3 suspects went unrecorded because if they put it on paper, then it would end the career of the official who did it. So the files went thin on purpose. A political class had built a whole industry around systemic racism. When it went colorblind, suddenly the moment the rapists came back the wrong color because of the story that they were selling. They would rather hand a girl back than sit through one accusation of bigotry. Now, my libertarian nationalism that I am advocating for starts by refusing this trade-off, that we should control the border and expect people that come here to the United States that they should join the country that they came to. But we need to talk about what the pattern is of people from this ethnic subgroup while the evidence is still warm. So this is the upkeep that is required that a free country owes the people who live in this country. And the nation that skips this kind of house cleaning on behalf of its own daughters has walked off of the only job that ever mattered. The same reflex that we have here in the United States, it is alive in our institutions. The sort of antibiotic response to this kind of tyranny from ethnic subgroups and from sexual subgroups, it's on display right now because Friday night in San Francisco, 3 Giants pitchers wrote one Bible verse on their Pride Night caps. They didn't protest. They didn't make demands, but by Monday, the league had a warning on the door. 4 letters and 2 numbers got a response faster from Major League Baseball than a generation of raped children got from the British state. We'll talk about these topics this morning. I'm Austin Peterson. This is the Wake Up America show. This will be, some challenging and difficult and dark topics. I try to, keep things light, but I apologize. This is just a very difficult subject matter. Missouri's Attorney General Catherine Hanaway drew a line on that ballpark fight this week. Camelia Peterson is going to be with us this morning at 8 a.m. Central to talk about whether a state AG swinging at a private league sits right with people like us. Should be a good conversation. Later, comedian Lou Perez will be joining us to talk about the first trillionaire, in human history. And the White House, the joke that was made at the UFC the other night that even Shane Gillis walked away from. Wake up, America. It's time to rise and freedom. Thank you very much to whoever went to the gift shop this morning and decided to make a purchase. We do have bonus content for you this week. Instead of watching commercials when we go to our break, if we raise $100, looks like we're halfway there already, then you get to watch our mini documentaries. And this week we've been experimenting with the new art styles. So we've been producing anime mini documentaries about heroes from the American Revolution. So if you'd like to see that, then drop some Rumble rants if you're watching us live on Rumble, or do what someone apparently did and go to forlibertyshop.com. That's the number 4libertyshop.com. And if you make a purchase during the live show, all of those purchases add up to create a whirlwind of cash. And if we raise $100 either in purchases or in Rumble rants, then that will unlock our bonus content today on the Wake Up America show. Excuse me for just a moment. Ooh, please forgive me.
It all started when the league was warning players against expressing their Christian faith on their uniforms.
They're all for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Unless you have a diversity of opinion, then you're not included.
That's right, Harris. The issue's gotten the attention of GOP lawmakers here in the nation's capital. Senator Josh Hawley writing MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred, quote, "You must answer for what appears to be a pattern of discrimination within MLB against baseball players who profess their Christian faith." In the game with Bible verses on their hats, another took the mound without his Pride Night cap, instead wearing the traditional orange lettering. The pitchers have a supporter in Vice President J.D. Vance, who posted on X, quote, "Trump won. We don't have to do this anymore."
Good for you, JD.
It all started.
Good for you guys. On a Friday night in mid-June 2026, the San Francisco Giants put on their gay Pride Night caps before a game against the Chicago Cubs. The rainbow SF logo sat bright across the front of each cap, as the league would require them to do for the night. Now, 3 pitchers on that team, Landon Roop, the starter, and relievers JT Brubaker and Ryan Walker, looked at the caps and decided to write something of their own on them. They added references to Genesis 9:12 through 16, which is the section of the Bible that describes God placing a rainbow in the sky after the flood as a covenant promise of faithfulness to Noah and all of creation. The players said later that they did it as an act of personal Christian faith to honor the original meaning of that symbol during an event that the league had turned into a mandatory LGBT production. Now, they didn't make any demands. The players didn't demand anyone else do this. They made it clear it wasn't a protest. Major League Baseball moved before the game had even reached the later innings. They were so terrified. Officials issued verbal warnings that the writing on the caps violated the league's uniform rules under the basic agreement with the Players Association. Pat Courtney, who is the league's chief communications officer, stated that the writing on the cap violates our rules and consistent with normal practice. We have warned the players about future violations. Now, no fines came down for the players right away, but the warning carried the clear threat that any repeat of this kind of behavior would bring discipline. Now, the Giants organization later apologized to the LGBTQ community for any upset while saying they supported the players' right to hold their beliefs. Now, the league had no trouble turning its uniforms into moving advertisements for one side of the culture war that night, but the moment that 3 players added a biblical reference to the same symbol, the response to this was fast, and it was pretty damn official.
A lot of the hate comes from perceived negativity. And without getting too off track, but like the Pride Night stuff with the Giants, like I think that there's a perceived negativity with this stuff of like, okay, Landon Routt wrote a verse on his hat. That means that he's anti something. That doesn't mean that, right? It means that he's pro something, right? So the rainbow means something to him. It means that he believes in the Noahic covenant being something that's special to us as Christians, right? That means that no matter how bad we possibly could be, no matter how much we reject God, that he will never again flood the earth. That's really cool. That's really special. And we do a lot of stuff, and we're all sinful. We all do a lot of stuff that may be worthy of a flooding, but God will never flood us and because of that promise, and his promises are unconditional. So that's something that's really cool to me, is that there's nothing negative. There's nothing anti. There's nothing that says that he doesn't support anything or that he's like hateful or anything like that at all. It's all positive. It's all like, man, this is what the rainbow means to me. And I just thought that was really cool that he did that. Yeah. A lot of the hate comes from.
There you go. Good for you. Now, Missouri Attorney General Catherine Hanaway received word of the warnings that the players had received, and she acted right away, and I got to hand it to her. She was on the case. So she sent a formal letter to Major League Baseball demanding that the league stop any move to discipline the players for writing Bible verses on their caps. Her office stated directly that Missouri will not tolerate any threat to punish a player for exercising his sincerely held religious or moral beliefs, and she included the threat of a state investigation into First Amendment concerns. Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri followed the same day with a public demand for Commissioner Robert Manfred to provide immediate answers immediate answers about what he called a pattern of discrimination against the players who hold a Christian faith. Now, the First Amendment protects the free exercise of religion and freedom of speech from government punishment, but MLB operates as a private league, so Hanaway used the power of the government to examine whether this national organization was burdening religious practice and applying its rules in a way that picks winners and losers based on ideology. And that step represents federalism in practice, with a state official stepping in to check a league that has shown itself willing to celebrate one set of beliefs on the field while treating another as a violation. Now, the players never asked MLB to cancel Pride Night, so they weren't removing the rainbow elements from their caps or telling them that they refuse to celebrate the other point of view or starting a protest amongst all of the players. These men simply added a passage from Genesis 9 that describes the rainbow as God's covenant to the same gear that the league had chosen for that night. Now, MLB labeled the addition a uniform problem that required an official warning. The left has built a consistent pattern across sports and across corporate life where certain beliefs receive full institutional protection, while traditional Christian faith will face a quick pushback under the cover of rules or inclusions. Now, the Diamondback pitcher Ryan Thompson was defending the Giants players for the Bible verse on their caps. You just heard that clip that we played a moment ago. Major League Baseball has spent several reasons turning these games and uniforms into full pride productions with rainbow caps, themed nights, public statements that align with the left on the culture war. The league presents these efforts as a stand for inclusion and diversity. Yet, When 3 players added a sincere biblical reference to the rainbow from Genesis 9 onto those same Pride Night caps, the response was an immediate warning under uniform rules that prohibit unauthorized writing or alterations of their uniforms. Of course, that response is not neutral policy enforcement. It is selective pressure where the league and its allies will create space for one set of beliefs while moving to contain and suppress another set of beliefs. Now, here's the story. Here's the law. Federal law under Title VII requires employers, including a multi-state operation like MLB, to provide reasonable accommodations for sincerely held religious beliefs and practices unless doing so creates undue hardship. That is the law. A short verse that's written on a cap for a single game does not create undue hardship, especially when the league itself rewrites its uniforms and productions for entire evenings dedicated to other ideological themes. Missouri, under Catherine Hanaway, has made clear that it won't stand by while a National League attempts to force Christian players into silence while every other cause receives corporate support and protection. Now, the players, they did not demand special treatment. They did not attack the event. They only asked to stand on the field with a visible expression of their faith during a night that the league had chosen to highlight other beliefs. The warning that these players received showed where the real priorities lie. Hanaway and Hawley used the tools available to them and the federal law to push back against corporate overreach that tries to police conscience under the guise of rules. Now, a free society would not allow national institutions to punish a form of belief while celebrating its opposites and still claim that we're standing for liberty. Missouri has drawn that line, and the defense of religious expression requires holding it. Now, it's the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without necessarily accepting it. And I know that my libertarian audience would say, well, the league has their own rules. It's a private company. They should be able to do so. Well, yes, ein Minuten bitte. It is a private league, but there is a federal law that says that that multi-state corporations that operate in a federal capacity, working across state lines in this country, do have to make reasonable accommodations for people who work in those companies to be able to practice their own faith. Because if you lived in a completely, entirely privatized society and everything was private and nothing was public, if you lived in an anarcho-capitalist regime and every single place in the entire country refused to allow you to practice your Christianity, and the only place that you could practice your Christianity was within the confines of your own compound or your own home, is that really what freedom is? Is that what freedom really looks like? Or does it look like the ability to practice or your freedom and your freedom of speech from sea to shining sea? It is a legitimate question about the tyranny of private institutions that suppress the innate human rights that we all carry with us. What does it matter if a corporation is infringing on your free speech versus the government infringing on your free speech? Corporations can sometimes be as tyrannical as government in many ways. This is the argument that we're going to posit. This is the argument that we're going to have. I'm not saying that I necessarily fully agree with that, but I think that it deserves, it does deserve to hear the light of day. So I'm sure Camellia, when she gets here at 8 a.m., she's probably going to take that hardcore libertarian stance. And just for the sake of argument, just for the sake of having an open mind, I'm going to take the other side of that one so that we can try and see where we can really go with this one. And we're going to do a thought experiment, and we're going to entertain a thought without necessarily accepting it. Sound good? Okay, there we go. So while we're talking about America's future, don't forget we're coming up on 250 years of the greatest country in human history. And the For Liberty Shop's 250th anniversary collection is live. And boy, oh boy, are people going crazy for it. They love it. We've sold hundreds of these America 76 250 years t-shirts at forlibertyshop.com. You can use the code buy2get15 if you buy 2 of anything in the store. Use the code buy2get15 and you'll save 15% on your entire order. Oh, Camellia says 7:30. Thank you, Camellia. I would have messed that up. 7:30. Thanks for checking me, Camellia. Thank God I have Camellia to keep me on top of things. Okay, so what that means is that Camellia will be here at 7:30, and we'll talk about the Pakistani rape gangs at 8 a.m. Central, and then we'll have Lou Perez at 8:30. Camellia has some stuff to do. She's a busy girl, so she'll be joining us here live in just about 5 minutes. So during the commercial break, let's move to unlock that bonus content. We've already raised more than half of what we need to unlock the 5-minute mini documentary. This week, we're going with an anime theme to tell the story of patriotic heroes from the American Revolution. So head to forlibertyshop.com. Eric Wilson says, I'm going to shop for 4th of July weekend camping. Will it arrive in time? Eric, today is like the deadline. I mean, the literal deadline. Yesterday was the guaranteed by July 4th. Today is the more than likely, but not 100%. So you've got a greater than 50% chance if you order it, you make your order today. So my recommendation to you, Eric, is head to the shop right freaking now. Order what you need for your 4th of July holiday, and we will work as fast as we can to try and get it to you as quick as we can. So don't waste time. Go to the shop right now, make your purchase, unlock the bonus content, and then instead of commercials, I'll flip over to the anime mini documentary if you make your purchase in time, okay? All right, let's do it. So Camellia Peterson joins us to talk about this MLB controversy, private versus public, homosexual MLB messages, the true meaning of the rainbow flag, God's flood, which they say will never happen again, but maybe it should. We'll be right back. It's the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network.
Hark! I've discovered a brew so bold, 'twill ignite the spirit of liberty. This is not merely coffee, 'tis the very essence of American boldness. Give me coffee, or give me death. Go to 4 Liberty Shop to procure yours now.
'Tis the year of our Lord, 1801. President Trump Jefferson casts his gaze o'er the sovereign Potomac and beholds a most wretched spectacle upon the waters. From the cursed shores of Tripoli and the welfare coffers of distant Minnesota comes the brazen Captain Ilhan Omar, commanding her fleet of Barbary pirates. She demands her ransom, billions in reparations. Yet one instrument of fortitude suffices, a steaming chalice of Jeffersonian Java, bold and unapologetic from 4 Liberty Shop. No more tribute to rogues, he thunders, and dispatches the Navy and Marines to smash Omar's fleet asunder. Trump Jefferson stands triumphant as Omar's plunder meets the end it deserved back in Minnesota. Jeffersonian Java, the coffee that gives true Americans the courage to refuse tribute and rebuke fraud. Procure yours at 4libertyshop.com and make America caffeinated again.
In a city where businesses never sleep, the technology still crashes. When technology turns criminal, they send up the signal. He's not a myth, and he's definitely not your nephew who knows computers. He installs, he protects, he backs it up, he keeps your business online and out of trouble. Managed IT, security, cloud, support that actually answers the phone. Layer 8 tech. When your network breaks, he wakes. Call Drew before your tech needs a rescue signal.
George Washington spent 8 years making sure nobody knew where he was. Troop movements, secret dispatches. The man was a ghost. So when a barista leaned out a window and asked for his exact location in exchange for points they called stars, he looked at his flag and said, "I've already got my stars. 13 of them." Keep your dignity and your location intact. Grab a box of Washington's Revolutionary Roast at 4libertyshop.com.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty.
Welcome back. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network. My next guest is a Missouri liberty activist who spends her days trying to shrink the government and expand freedom. She has sat at this table many times before. This is my favorite version of her. It's the Thursday Camellia. Camellia Peterson joins us live from the campus of Missouri S&T. Hi, CJ.
Good morning. It's a beautiful morning so far. I feel it getting hot, though. It's going to be hot.
Yeah, it is going to be a hot day. Camellia, where are you at today? It's a beautiful shot.
Missouri S&T, and they have, like, over the years, they have made so many improvements to their campus, and it is beautiful. I was telling you before we came on that Felicity was here last week for a nuclear science camp. So really neat, and they're really integral part because they have a functioning reactor here. So they're an integral part of like the push for nuclear in Missouri. So, but today the governor is having a forum on AI and data centers.
Not AI and data centers.
Which could be powered by nuclear, right?
Oh, okay. So you're going to be okay. Well, and I hear that there might be some protesters to this data center.
There will be protesters. I've seen they started organizing, a couple of weeks ago. I saw the graphics going around, so should be interesting.
Okay. Well, I for one am a big fan of AI because obviously I use it to run this business. It powers everything that I do. It gives me the ability to make awesome. I make awesome merchandise. I'm able to feed my family. Without AI, I couldn't do it. So, what are the best What are the best arguments that you have in favor of building data centers, Camellia?
I mean, I think it makes it's like all technological advances. It makes our lives easier every step of the way. It makes us so much more efficient. I use it all of the time. I avoided going to the doctor the other day because I plugged in all my symptoms. It'll I could even put in a picture of my foot or whatever it was and like exactly where the spot was. And and I have it walk through like possibilities with me, right? And like narrow it down. It asks questions, we narrow it down, and then it's like possible treatments. So I'm going to do all that. And I did all that before I go spend, 3 hours in an urgent care or a walk-in clinic or whatever. And I'm doing much better because I've been doing what it says. So like it's everyday life application. It just really helps.
Nice. Well, that's
but always check it. Always check it. That right. You always have to verify.
Yeah. Well, good luck today with the protesters, and give the governor our best, and tell him that the audience from the Wake Up America show are big fans and supporters of his because he's been right behind us on abolishing the income tax here in Missouri. Let him know that we're grateful that he's bringing data centers here to the state of Missouri, because if other states want to get behind the times, then Missouri will lead the way. We're abolishing our income tax and leading the way with technology, Camellia. So tell him we said thank you.
Yeah, I will do that.
Okay. So let's talk about this MLB controversy, because I think this is actually really challenging. And I'm not entirely certain that I'm swayed by Josh Hawley and Catherine Hanaway's arguments. However, I think I am starting to see their side of things. So let's talk briefly about what this is. So the MLB had a baseball game. They're celebrating Pride Night. They forced the players to wear these sort of gay pride uniforms, and some of the players are Christians. So in some ways, they're being required by their contracts to violate their conscience, their religion. And so in order to not violate their conscience, they decided to put a Bible verse on their hats in violation of the rules of the MLB, which is a callback to Genesis, where God promises that with the rainbow that he will not flood the earth again. What is your take on this controversy? A necessary and proper role of government to intervene, or violation of private property rights? Go.
A little conflicted, because I think there's a couple of different angles here. Like, I think anytime you allow the government to come in and dictate to a private company what kind of speech they can allow, I think you're treading on dangerous ground. It's a very slippery slope. But however, when I was reading through some of the articles about it, was it 2 or 3 players that had written on their hats? There was another player who also did not go along with this, but he just put the plain regular hat on that they always wear. And I don't know that he got in trouble for that. So, I mean, maybe that wasn't against the rules. So to a certain extent, I think maybe like the players who wrote on the hats and wore the pride hats anyway, but wrote on them, that maybe they were sort of intentionally poking the bear to kind of generate that controversy. So I don't know. Like, I think that there's, I think it is a matter, like if you go into working for a company and you know the rules and you know what they do, then you kind of know what you're in for, and you have to make that decision ahead of time. So that I grew up observing Sabbath. And so that was a big deal for us. Anytime we got a job anywhere or anything, we that was a requirement that we had to be off on Saturdays. So, I always grew up knowing that we had to be upfront with the employer, and that had to be part of, the acceptance to get hired. Because they were under no obligation to hire me, if I couldn't work the days that they wanted, and if I wasn't able to do that, and I wasn't upfront with them in the beginning, like they had every right to let me go if they, needed somebody else that could work that day. So, I think that, I don't know, I think it's touchy. I think that employers need to be able to, dictate to a certain extent. I mean, especially when you're on the job, like you have to draw a line somewhere, right? I mean, there's lots and lots of examples of employers who have employees going out there as a representative of the company. People know they work for them, and they do really vulgar, things and whatever, and then they get fired for it. And we should be okay with that, right? Because it's the company's right to do that. So when I was looking through this, I was trying to think if there's anything that makes this different, right? For the government to get involved in here. And I know that, the MLB has like the only exemption to antitrust laws. There are a few things like that, but I don't know. I mean, the only really legal ground, really, when you talk about the letters from Hawley and Hanaway, and Hawley's is lots and lots of words. I love that Hanaway's just got right to the point. But I mean, they're talking really the grounds of religious discrimination. So, I don't know.
Hanaway, she cited federal law that requires corporations that operate in an interstate fashion. Right. If you've got a corporate presence in multiple states, then federal law applies to you, which requires that these corporations make reasonable accommodations for people to be able to practice their faith. And so if that's the federal law, then Hanaway is playing on what is already on the books. And I mean, what is unreasonable about being able to suggest that the rainbow that you're forced to require represents what it represented biblically? Camellia, is that unreasonable?
Yeah, I would know. I don't know. I was looking at the origin of that and why that came about to be. Like, the guy who created the rainbow flag as a representation of the LGBT movement, of course, did not say that he was trying to appropriate it from the Bible. Mm-hmm. But, all the reasons also reflected connotations that directly come from biblical references and context around the rainbow itself. So, like, you can't really, like, inference will lead you to, assume that, that there was some intention there, right? But so here's a question for you. And I agree, like it's following the law, right? For them to do, for her to file suit or demand answers. But let's say the baker, right, operated in multiple states. Would he have then had to bake the cake?
Well, he would have been subject to civil rights law, but he would. It would depend on how you interpreted. So, in terms of protected class, this is a question of protected classes. There's multiple layers when it comes to that. So, if the baker had operated in multiple states, I don't think it would have mattered because being LGBT is not a protected class as defined by the Civil Rights Act as it currently stands. So the LGBT community couldn't have sued him for under civil rights law, even though they did, because it's a protected class situation. The reason why the Supreme Court was able to toss the Masterpiece cake decision is in part because LGBTs are not at the moment a protected class. Now they are furiously campaigning for that to happen, but I guess what I'm asking here is this is where things get really challenging, Camellia, and we're going to get a little bit into the weeds on theory here, because there's this question of small harms, like doing small harms to achieve greater goods. So libertarians believe in the concept of taxation as a form of theft, right? And I believe taxation is theft. You believe taxation is theft. But we still support some forms of taxation, right? We're not full anarchists, okay? Right. So then that means that you and I are saying we support theft, okay? Which means that we're evil, we're statists, we're Adolf Hitler essentially to the anarchists, right? And then they'll ask us, well, what is it? Why is it, Austin? Why is it that you, if you believe that taxation is theft, that you think that some small form of taxation is necessary? Well, it's because some small harms can achieve incredible positive things. If you look at it from a biological perspective, if I get a tetanus shot, then I'm going to experience pain from the shot. That's a small harm, and it's going to create a greater positive feedback. So taxation, because it's theft, should be kept to its absolute minimum possible, so that it can, so that it doesn't create a greater harm. But in this case where we're looking at the MLB, I think that even if under the definition of libertarianism as we understand it, what Catherine Hanaway or Josh Hawley is doing is a harm, it's definitely a small harm. And I think that what they're doing, I think the case could be made that in defending Christian values in this country against the cult of the left and the LGBT community, which unfortunately now has become an arm and a wing of the Democratic Party, which opposes us. I think you can like your gay friends and believe in their individual rights while arguing that collectively they are opposed to the project that you and I have devoted our lives to. And to say that, and in that sense that, I don't think you should be thrown off of a building, but metaphorically, politically, I'm going to throw you off a building. And in this case, I think it's a necessary small harm for us to do in order to defend ourselves against the collectivist threat. What do you think of that argument, Camellia?
I mean, I think that they should abide by, law that's in place. I think the larger conversation is whether or not we should have protected classes at all, right? That's the bigger conversation. And I certainly do think that, the LGBT movement at large has become a religious movement in many ways and different. And I guess what I want the difference to be is, I think there are some in Christianity who do want to use authoritarian measures to kind of make everybody else, accept, their beliefs. But that is, I think there's not a lot of Christians that do that. I think it's a fairly so far small segment. However, with the LGBT movement as we see it, it's not enough just to be accepted. Like it is, you have to forcibly, you're forced to acknowledge and accommodate and do things that are out of the realm of, reasonableness that we would do for no one else, right? I mean, they are making themselves a more special class than really any other special class.
Well, what about like the banking question? Because imagine this: if we're not talking about if we're not talking about professional sports, because that's a form of entertainment. But conservatives in this country have been debanked over their political views and their opinions. What if someone wanted to remove the ability for someone to participate in the banking system because they didn't like their Christian beliefs, Camelia? Would you be opposed to that then?
Yeah, I think the banking system is too tied up with the government not to say you have to apply everything equally, right? I mean, to me, that's a lot more clear. Mm-hmm. And also, with the MLB, I think, one of the things in Hawley's letter that is, a valid criticism is the question, are you applying your rules evenly? Are there other examples where you have allowed something that is similar to this, So I think that's really valid, because if you are going to have the rules, apply them evenly.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's just, libertarian theories, we value mutual voluntary association, not one-sided dictates from a more powerful party. I mean, MLB, they represent Pride Night as kind of mandatory symbolism, and then they treat counter-religious messages as rule breaking. So the corporation becomes the effective ruler of an acceptable belief rather than a neutral contracted partner. I mean, at what point does the infringement of corporations on our individual liberty essentially become a de facto government? I mean, maybe not in the case of the MLB, Camelia, but certainly many of these corporations have incredible power. These big tech companies, they have incredible power over an individual to be able to destroy our livelihoods and to infringe on our freedom of speech to an extent, Camelia.
Yeah, and I think that's where, and kind of my French people will be like, oh, you're a corporatist or whatever, right? I mean, but I think that's where government becomes part of the problem, right? Because government, ends up making corporations more powerful by subsidizing them, by regulating them, by giving them breaks. They're so entangled with the government that it actually ends up working to create the problem. And then, you're coming back to the government to say, protect me from these problems. I'm not saying the government wholly creates the problem, but they create the environment for it. So, I mean, absolutely, that's the function of government, is to protect individual rights. And then I guess that opens up the whole question of, what are individual rights specifically? Is it, to not be fired from your employer for, for your religious beliefs?
If somebody had done this and they had put a verse from the Quran on their hat, what do you think the response would have been, Camelia? Do you think that the MLB would have come down on them if you had a Muslim player and they didn't want to participate in Pride Night? Do you think they would come after them the way that they did?
Boy, they would be in a real dilemma, wouldn't they? I honestly don't know what they would do.
What they would do, Camelia.
Interesting scenario.
And that's why I think that this pushback is necessary, because I think it's clearly an attempt by the cultural left to try and destroy majority views in this country that built this country. I'm not saying the United States is a Christian nation, Camelia. I'm not a Christian nationalist, but I am a libertarian nationalist. And I can see quite clearly that the left has a project to destroy the majority views of people in this country and to try and make people who are Christians feel uncomfortable in this country. And I don't think that we should allow that or tolerate that, Camelia, because I think at some point, libertarians are probably going to have to do small harms in order to achieve greater good. I don't think here's what I think. I don't think that there's probably a libertarian solution for us to get to libertarian results. In other words, we probably are going to have to do non-libertarian things for libertarian ends.
So here's where I think the difference is between what you are saying and what I would consider the authoritarian right is saying, is that this is the way you present it, like as small harms, this is the exception, not the rule, right? The authoritarian right, when you talk about common good conservatism, they're saying to make the government supporting their viewpoints the rule, the norm, rather than the exception. It's kind of like what we saw with the moral majority, but I think there are people who would like to see it to a greater extent today. But that's where I think that we just have to be careful. We should always keep the North Star there. I was telling this to someone the other day. It's there's, politics is a dirty business, right? And Tony Lavasco told me one time that liberty-minded people don't stay in politics long enough to get anything done because they don't want to get their hands dirty. And that is, so you have to be able to accept not getting everything that you want and making some compromises and feeling like you're getting your hands dirty sometimes in order to get those things done. But the North Star is always there. That's always what you're looking at, and that keeps you in line, even when you're having to, make some of those compromises and, the small harms, I guess.
Yeah. And thanks for bringing up Tony Lavasco. How's Tony doing? I guess he's got no primary challenger. So
no
he's
primary opponent. So
yes.
he's golden. I'm so glad to have him. We get him for 2 more years.
Thank God. Thank God.
About, what kind of bills should Tony carry? Because I want to give him some food freedom laws in Missouri or, other Tony-like laws.
I like Tony, but maybe for his last 2 years, don't make the brass knuckles a big thing.
No.
I'm for legalizing the brass knuckles, but you can already buy the brass knuckles. They just call them paperweights at the mall here in Jefferson City. So, Camellia, what else is going on? Anything else in your world that people ought to know before we let you go today?
Oh man, we're just on the road all over the place doing the income tax town halls for Amendment 5. I know you've got several, a lot of Missouri people who watch here too, and some of them I know are not sure about this. And what I would say is, go look at afpmissouri.com on the events site and look. I'm still trying to get them all up on there because there's so many, but come out and have the conversation because that's really what makes the difference.
Okay, we're Camellia and I, if you want to know how we're voting, it's a yes for Amendment 5.
That's right.
But it's still a free country, so make up your own mind. Camellia, we appreciate you very much. Thanks so much for joining us, and you look lovely out there on a beautiful day. Try and stay cool if you can. Have a good one.
Have a great day, everyone.
That's Camellia Peterson, joined us live from Missouri S&T campus this morning for a great conversation. Talked about data centers here in Missouri being built. We talked about the Major League Baseball controversy. We talked about theories versus principles. What did you guys think? And where did you come down? Did you think that I made a good argument on the other side of this question for the MLB? Did I give you something to think about? If so, and you haven't clicked the like button yet on the stream, what's wrong with you children? Just click the like button over there, will you? Just do it. You don't hear conversations like this anywhere else. And head over to forlibertyshop.com. It looks like we're only 20 and $18 away from unlocking the bonus content. Guys, I cannot tell you how freaking good this coffee is. This Knox's Continental Kick, the light roast K-Cups. I mean, obviously the branding is beautiful. When you get a box of this with the gorgeous cannons on there from Henry Knox, obviously you're going to get this box and be like, oh, that's really cool. Wow, I love having a founding father on my coffee. This will look really cool on my desk. This will be a great gift. But guys, I'm not kidding when I tell you that the coffee, this coffee specifically, this K-Cup, I don't know if it's the best coffee I've ever had in my life. It's definitely top 3 in terms of best coffee I've ever had in my life. Knox's Continental Kick. I think the number 1 best coffee I've ever had in my life is pretty clearly it's the Thomas's Painkiller, this Colombian single origin roast. I don't know if it's for everybody. I just happen to think it's the best, but the Knox's Continental Kick, if you're looking for K-Cups, is the way to go. I recommend the Thomas's Painkiller Founding Flavors coffee, but everybody knows the number 1 seller in the shop is the Jeffersonian Java. The Thomas Jefferson with a beautiful image of him at Monticello. Let's see if I can turn it around for you so you can see the box. You can hear. You can see these are. Oh my God! I just got a smell of that. It smells so good. Oh my God! I wish you guys. I wish we had smell-o-vision. You can see right here, beautiful Monticello in the background. So obviously the boxes and the packaging is really cool, and we just committed to a branding redesign so that we can expand our brand even more. But this is the number 1 seller in the shop, Jeffersonian Java. People do love this brand, but this is my new favorite, the Knox's Continental Kick. And I'm not kidding you. Oh my God. Oh my God. I just almost want to open this right now and just taste it. So the Jeffersonian Java is number 1 seller. Number 2 is Franklin's Electric Elixir. He's got a nice little kite right there doing his experiment. But if you need K-Cups, guys, just get a box of the Knox's Continental Kick. All we've got to do is sell one more box of coffee, and that will unlock the bonus content, because I know you would much rather watch the mini documentary versus commercials. So head over to forlibertyshop.com, grab a box of Founding Flavors coffee, shop the 250th anniversary collection, and we'll probably even be able to do the Great Grift Off today when we get back. Why is the United Kingdom protecting Pakistani Muslim rape gangs? We'll be right back. This is the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian, and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
The left in America tells us not to have kids to save the planet, but in Cuba, they stopped having kids because the state destroyed the earth.
Collectivism doesn't create justice. It creates shortages, corruption, and power for the few. I've not just seen it, I've lived it. My family escaped it. Now, the same failed ideas are being sold to a new generation. I'm here to expose the lie and defend liberty. From Cuba to Argentina to the United States, the freedom movement is rising. Cafecito Libre is the exile voice of economic truth. Cafecito Libre, premiering March 3rd as part of the For Liberty Network, only on Rumble.
George Washington spent 8 years making sure nobody knew where he was. Troop movements, secret dispatches. The man was a ghost. So when a barista leaned out a window and asked for his exact location in exchange for points they called stars, he looked at his flag and said, "I've already got my stars. 13 of them. Keep your dignity and your location intact. Grab a box of Washington's Revolutionary Roast at forlibertyshop.com.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder?
"'Tis the year of our Lord, 1801. President Trump Jefferson casts his gaze o'er the sovereign Potomac and beholds a most wretched spectacle upon the waters. From the cursed shores of Tripoli and the welfare coffers of distant Minnesota comes the brazen Captain Ilhan Omar, commanding her fleet of Barbary pirates. She demands her ransom, billions in reparations. Yet one instrument of fortitude suffices, a steaming chalice of Jeffersonian Java, bold and unapologetic from For Liberty Shop. No more tribute to rogues, he thunders, and dispatches the Navy and Marines to smash Omar's fleet asunder. Trump Jefferson stands triumphant as Omar's plunder meets the end it deserved back in Minnesota. Jeffersonian Java, the coffee that gives true Americans the courage to refuse tribute and rebuke fraud. Procure yours at forlibertyshop.com and make America caffeinated again.
白人の割合が 36.8?
はい、イギリス人のですね。
はい。いや、もっと多いと思ってたから、パーセンテージって割合は少ないかなと僕は思いました、今聞いて。
そうですね、より多いイメージありましたね。
60から70ぐらいあるかなと思ってました。
3分の1にまで減りましたらどう思いますか？
大変なことやなって、驚く、びっくりする。はい。
もしそうなったらポジティブと思いますか？もしくはネガティブと思いますか？
古い考えはネガティブと思います。
なんでですか？
なんでですか？大阪でも結構、旅行者、サイトスイング、観光で来ている人はええけど、住んでる人はそんなに多くないと思うんです。だから、3割言うたらもう、会う人がほとんどもう、外国人の方になったら、日本って大丈夫かなって、僕も古い人間やから、思ってしまいます。白人の割合が 36.8?
はい。イギリス人のですね。
はい。いや、もっと多いと思ってたから、パーセンテージ。
He thought there were more. Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show. We're on the For Liberty Network. Click the like button if you haven't already. Click the follow button if today is your first time watching the show and you enjoy the content. We'd be glad to have you come back and join us. Our show schedule is what, Joni Rankin? 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Central. Peter the Great, you're late. What are you doing? Sleeping in? Please. In the spring of 2026, a 13-year-old girl in one of Britain's northern towns walked the same route to school she had taken for years. She kept her head down and her bag tight against her side because the boys had started waiting for her again. They were Pakistani Muslim boys from the nearby estate, and they called out to her by name. They told her they were going to rape her and they laughed when she tried to walk faster. Now, she reported this incident to a teacher who told her to ignore them and don't make a fuss. Her parents went to the police, and the officer on duty said they would look into it, but nothing happened because the boys were from the community that no one was allowed to name without the risk of losing their job. Sounds like a great place to raise your kids, right? Well, that girl is not alone. She's one of thousands who grew up in the same thread in towns where grooming gangs turned vulnerable white British girls into property. The Rape Gang Inquiry report that Rupert Lowe released on June 16th puts the scale in black and white. It estimates at least 250,000 British girls suffered repeated rape trafficking and systematic torture. These details come straight from court records and victim testimonies. Babies had cigarettes stubbed out on their skin while their mothers were held down and forced to watch. Girls as young as 5 and 6 were tied to beds and abused by multiple men. Some were locked inside dog cages for days. Others were branded with an M for Muhammad on their skin. Victims were raped by dogs while groups of men bet money on whether the animal would attack vaginally or anally. Glass bottles, keys, and baseball bats were forced inside these girls until they were broken and caused internal damage. Girls were set on fire and whipped until their backs were raw, upside down from ceilings. They were hung and urinated on by their attackers. Some were told they would be killed and fed to pigs if they ever spoke. Consider what happened to one mother named Sally after her daughter was groomed. The daughter attempted suicide by overdose the following week. She went missing one final time, was found in a field with injuries to her head and ear, a severed finger, and numerous cuts and bruises. Following this, Sally wrote a post on Facebook alleging her daughter had been a victim of grooming gangs. This post went viral. Within half an hour, the police arrested her, and she was sent to prison. Following her daughter's conviction, the family experienced sustained harassment and intimidation, particularly from one Muslim man. Sally reports repeated failures by the police to protect them. She believes that her daughter was a vulnerable young woman who lied at times, but was nevertheless groomed. The report states that the overwhelming majority of the perpetrators were Pakistani Muslim men, with additional numbers from Somali, Iranian, Syrian, Turkish, Bangladeshi, and Iraqi backgrounds. The left in Britain and their echo chamber in America have spent more than a decade calling anyone who noticed this ethnic pattern a racist or an Islamophobe. They said the real danger was white men or poverty or toxic masculinity. And they said talking about it would only make things worse. That position, of course, has now been exposed as the cowardly lie that it always was.
I'd got a phone call to say where Elizabeth was. So I come across, because I lived on next estate, I come across, banged on the door. I saw a movement in curtain. Then within probably 5 minutes, a police car arrived. They asked me what I was doing. I told them. They arrested me and took me back to where I lived, and then they arrested me. So obviously I'm sat in house again, and I would getting more and more frustrated. So I come back over to the flat.
1 hour later or something, was it?
It was about 20 minutes.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
So it seemed within minutes, a van pulled up this time, and I think there were 2 or 3 officers. They arrested me, took me down to the police station. Took me to police station. They didn't take me to where they usually charge people and that. They took me straight through into a room near cells. So I'm in there. About half an hour later, they come and got me. Come on, you're going. I went, what do you mean? Just follow me, they said. So I followed them, and they took me through officers and out from where police station is, where public going. And they warned me if I come back to the flat, I'd be arrested for stalking. Because stalking laws had just come in then, you know, serious ones. So they let me go.
But what happens if you say, like, my daughter's in there, I want my daughter out? What do they say to you? She isn't in there, or she wants to stay in there, or what do they say to you?
The way it was what they were saying to me, it was what they were threatening me with. You know what I mean? They wouldn't answer me questions. Why wouldn't they get her out? Why wouldn't they let me get her out then if they don't want to do it? And I just kept coming back all the time. Look, you're targeting people because of their race. I said, I'm not at all. It's because of what they're doing. These are grown men.
Picture a South Yorkshire police officer back in 2010. He's sitting at a desk with a stack of files that describe Pakistani men picking up white girls from care homes and passing them around for sex in cars and abandoned houses. These files contain the names, addresses, and witness statements. But instead of building a case, the police officer received instructions from higher up to soft pedal the ethnicity, because naming the ethnicity could trigger community tensions, or worse, accusations of racism. Baroness Casey documented exactly this kind of interference in her national audit released on June 16th, 2025. She found that ethnicity data was missing for roughly 2/3 of group-based child sexual exploitation suspects. Yes, missing. Because police and social services had stopped recording it properly years before this. They were terrified of the backlash. In the three force areas she examined in detail, that overrepresentation of Pakistani men was impossible to miss. Rotherham Operation Stovewood identified 323 suspects, and 64% of these were Pakistani. Of the 42 men convicted under that operation, nearly 2/3 were Pakistani. The original J report from 2014 had already put the number of victims in Rotherham alone at 2,400 between 1997 and 2013. West Yorkshire Police records from West Yorkshire Police records from 2020 through 2024 showed 1,173 child sexual exploitation suspects, with Asian men at 35% of the total, while Asians made up only 16% of the local population. Birmingham Operation Protection listed 75 suspects, and 62% were Pakistani. Now, the left's response to these numbers has been to scream that noticing them is hate speech. Here's how one leftist in the UK responded to this report.
The Rape Gang Inquiry report is out. And I'm going to try not to laugh because it feels mean. I haven't read the whole thing. It's 219 pages. It's only just come out a couple of hours ago. So this time last year I went to Alistair Harrison and I explained to him that in order for the report to stand up to scrutiny when it was released, it needed a proper methodology, and it needed...
These people have invented a whole industry around systemic racism to explain away every problem in minority communities. But of course, they demand total colorblindedness the moment that the rapists turn out to be Pakistani Muslim men, and the victims turned out to be white working class girls from broken homes. Now, the double standard that people like this woman who are laughing at these rape victims have, this is not an accident. This is a direct result of a political class that have decided that protecting the multicultural narrative has mattered more than protecting actual children.
The disinformation that is being spread about Muslims and Pakistanis, I'm afraid, is only going to get worse. Unless we are, in fact, to counter it, we have to be proactive, but it's going to get worse. And you can already hear the commentary among some when it comes to the, for example, inquiry on grooming gangs. Never forgetting the point, of course, that the vast majority of sexual offences that are committed against children are committed by the white community, not by the British Pakistani community. But there's not been a national inquiry into that. Don't get me wrong, where there's systemic failures, the people have covered things up, that should absolutely be exposed and lessons should be learned. But let's be clear. The onus on countering the disinformation of the far right is not just our responsibility. Yes, I'll come to what we can do, but it is the responsibility of the whole of society. Because
that was Humza Yousaf, the former First Minister of Scotland. Humza Yousaf said this while the court records from Rotherham, Rochdale, and Huddersfield were already public, and while the victims were still coming forward with stories of being drugged and passed between dozens of men. He called it a right-wing agitation. Months later, a Shropshire counselor named Donna Edmonds sat in front of a camera and laughed out loud. That video that I showed you earlier when asked about the new rape gang inquiry report. She mocks the language and the methodology and compared it to County Line's drug cases, as if the systemic rape and branding with an M of thousands of girls is some kind of minor bureaucratic dispute. So this is the left's reaction in real time. They either deny that this pattern exists or they treat the people who are finally documenting it like they are the problem. Now, the cultural element to this, it's not abstract. Reporters from the case show perpetrators referred to the white girls as easy meat and white slags because those girls did not come from families that would track them down or fight back with the same intensity. Clan and family loyalties in parts of the Pakistani community put protection ahead of the group ahead of cooperation with police or protection of outsider victims. Cousin marriage rates remain extremely high in those networks, and they reinforce the insular thinking that treats the host society as something to be exploited rather than joined. In other words, inbred retards.
Why would you do that to somebody? Why would you do that?
I was in mood.
You was in the mood? Is that what you do in your country? You just go up to women and...
No. Sometimes.
So, how long have you been in England?
About 3 years.
3 years?
3 years.
Are you living in one of the hotels?
And you think that's acceptable? I was in a hotel, yeah.
So
you really think that's acceptable? Yeah.
Yeah, they think it's
Why would you do
acceptable.
that to-
Yeah. The left's multicultural creed insists that all values are equally valid and that any demand for assimilation is bigotry, except for the values that they don't share, that they call the far right. Those cultures, of course, are not equally valid. The left's creed has turned British towns now into hunting grounds for organized groups of Muslim men who see white girls as low status and therefore fair game. It's also turned the police forces of Britain and social services in Britain into institutions that prioritize avoiding racism accusations over stopping rapes. My libertarian nationalism rejects the left's entire framework. Borders are not an expression of hate. They are the basic infrastructure that allows a people to maintain the culture and the rule of law that make liberty possible in the first place. A nation that refuses to control its borders or name the cultural problems that cross these borders has chosen weakness over survival.
Party.
And you go to a local school?
Yeah.
Have you lived in this area all your life?
Yeah.
You're having problems at school. Can you just elaborate on the kind of problems that you're having?
Asian boys coming up to me and saying, I'm going to rape you, and if you don't go with me, I'm going to punch you in the face with a knuckle duster, and if you don't, give me a blowjob.
And this is happening at the school to several girls, is it? It's not an individual case?
No, it's happening to lots of girls.
Do you think the teachers and the authorities are aware of this?
Yeah.
I mean, you're probably aware that the Edge of the City programme focused on young girls like yourself who are being targeted by Asians to be groomed in this particular area. Do you think that was an accurate description of what is happening?
Yes.
Have you contacted the police regarding them threatening to rape you?
Yeah.
And what's the police response has been?
They said that they're going to look into it.
And that is it?
Yeah.
What's your teacher's response been?
The pupils are going to get excluded for 15 school days.
Right, and that is it?
Yeah.
There's also the accusation that young Asian males are hanging outside schools in flash cars, basically intimidating young girls like yourself with threats. Is that the case?
Yeah.
And this is happening, what, once a week, twice a week?
Every day.
Every day?
Yeah.
And the authorities know it's happening, but they're not doing anything about it? And how do you feel when you're targeted by these people?
I feel intimidated by them and scared.
Fiona Goddard was 14 years old, living in a children's home in Bradford when the men started to come for her. They would take her out and pass her around for hours or days at a time, and by the time she was 15, she was pregnant. One night, the police actually found her An officer had a 14-year-old girl in his car. He had a clear road to safety for her. Instead, he drove her back to the house where the abuse was happening. He looked at the Pakistani men inside and told them, have fun with her. Said he would come back later to pick her up. He talked to them like old friends doing each other a favor. Fiona has said all this out loud in public with her name attached. She's been described being raped by dozens of men, while every institution that existed to protect her found a reason not to. The care home that was supposed to keep this little girl safe had a written policy not to call the police unless a staff member personally watched her being dragged into a car. Short of that, the instruction was to write down the plate number and let her go. When her mother called to report her missing and named the men, the voice on the phone told her she could not call them Asian because that would be racist. The state had decided that the comfort of one community was worth more than the body of a 14-year-old girl. This was taught behavior. This was official policy. Across Britain, police forces and social services have spent years learning the most dangerous thing an officer could do was get called a racist. So they've stopped recording what they were looking at. Baroness Casey's national audit found ethnicity data missing for roughly 2/3 of group-based child sexual exploitation suspects. The information, of course, existed, but writing it down had just become a career risk. Parents who brought warnings got lectures on cultural sensitivity. Care workers who kept calling got told to stop wasting police time. Point at the individual officer if you want, but he was doing exactly what the system above him trained him to do. Yes, scum, exactly. Which was to treat girls like Fiona as the acceptable cost of keeping the multicultural picture intact. My libertarian nationalism exists for exactly this moment. Liberty means nothing if the nation that is supposed to secure it will not defend its own children from organized predation. A country that will hand a 14-year-old girl back to her rapists to avoid an awkward conversation has already surrendered the one job it had. Fiona Goddard was 14. She told the truth about what they did to her, and the country that owed her protection is still deciding whether her story is too racist to repeat. So we will repeat it here.
You have lost. You lost. The mistake that you made is you let us in the first place. See, that's the thing with brown people. And I'm going to say this as a brown person. There's a lot of us. Like a lot. There's like 1.2 billion in India. There's more than 200 million in Pakistan. There's like 170 million in Bangladesh. Those are just the people there. I'm even talking about the folks who are expats or immigrants. There's a bunch of us. And we breed. We're a breeding people. And the problem is you let us in 1965. There were a few of us beforehand. But once you let one of us in, you know what happens with brown folks? Our grandmother comes, our grandfather comes, our uncle comes, our aunt comes, our cousin comes, our second cousin comes, our third cousin comes. Then we have kids, a bunch of kids. And then guess what? Some white women, you know, the Western civilization women, the pure women, the American women, quote unquote, the Rust Belt women, the real women, they like some of us brown folks. We don't take them. They come to us. So we're embedded. We are everywhere. We are everywhere. I've traveled this country. I'm going to speak as a brown person. Brown people are everywhere. There will be a Patel motel or there will be a Desi restaurant everywhere. I want you to realize this. You have lost. Your story is a shitty story filled with misery. It's filled with bland chicken. It's filled with terrible, terrible dry ass meat. Your music sucks. All your culture sucks. Nobody. That's why the kids like listen to black people and their music. That's why the kids love Latinos. Your parties suck because they're monochromatic. Our parties have better food, better music, better looking women.
The same political class that let Pakistani grooming gangs operate for decades in Britain is the class that spent years telling Americans that secure borders were racist, that mass, low-skill immigration from cultures hostile to Western values is an unquestioned good. They use the same language about community tensions and Islamophobia to shut down discussion here. They still do this in the United States. My libertarian nationalism starts from the premise that individual liberty requires a sovereign nation strong enough to defend it. That means that a culture confident enough to demand assimilation instead of apologizing for its own existence must be defended. That means rejecting the moral relativism that says all ways of life are equal, even when some of those ways treat women and outsiders as property. Western civilization is not perfect, but it remains the only civilization in history that produced a legal and cultural framework for individual rights on a large scale. We do not owe it an apology for existing. And we don't owe it to any imported subculture to pretend that their failures are our fault. The men who raped and branded those girls in Britain and the officials who covered for them to protect a narrative deserve no sympathy and no second chance in positions of influence. These girls that they destroyed deserve a society that values their safety more than ideological fashion statements. Secure the border. Name the problem. Stop calling them Asians. Call them what they are, Muslims. Defend the civilization that makes liberty possible instead of surrendering it to the people and the ethnicity who hate it. I'm Austin Peterson. This is the Wake Up America show.
Fine, 250,000 of your women are being raped by Muslim, but it's okay.
Again,
it's fine.
Utterly ridiculous statement.
Go to Birmingham, go to Manchester.
Utterly ridiculous statement.
Go to Harvard.
As I've said repeatedly, the vast majority of sexual crime against women in the UK.
Lord Malcolm Pearson in Parliament.
Don Keith, the vast majority of sexual crime against women in my country is committed by white men.
Oh, here we go. You've never heard of per capita?
I have heard of per capita.
It's disproportionately committed by Muslims against white Christian girls because it's a rape genocide.
Right, let me bring
leftists understand per capita challenge. Impossible. Coming up next, Lou Perez on the world's first trillionaire. Is it Elon Musk's fault that when we go to the grocery store, we have to wait 30 minutes for an employee to come out and give us a tube of toothpaste behind those plastic walls? We'll talk about that when we get back in the Wake Up America show, and that's on the 4 Liberty Network. Of our Lord, 1801, President Trump Jefferson casts his gaze o'er the sovereign Potomac and beholds a most wretched spectacle upon the waters. From the cursed shores of Tripoli and the welfare coffers of distant Minnesota comes the brazen Captain Ilhan Omar, commanding her fleet of Barbary pirates. She demands her ransom, billions in reparations. Yet one instrument of fortitude suffices, a steaming chalice of Jeffersonian Java, bold and unapologetic from 4 Liberty.
No more Massachusetts on June 11, 1741, a boy was born who would become one of the most respected and beloved leaders of the early American Revolution. His name was Joseph Warren. From a young age, Warren showed remarkable intelligence and ambition. He attended Harvard College and graduated in 1759. After finishing his studies, he became a physician in Boston, quickly earning a reputation as one of the finest doctors in the city. Tall, handsome, and eloquent, Warren was widely admired for both his medical skill and his powerful speaking voice. But it was not medicine that would define his life. As tensions between Britain and the colonies grew, Warren became deeply involved in the Patriot movement. He formed a close alliance with Samuel Adams and John Hancock, becoming one of the most influential voices calling for resistance against British authority. Unlike many others who hesitated, Warren believed early on that reconciliation with Britain was unlikely, and that the colonies might eventually need to fight for their freedom. In March 1775, Warren was chosen to deliver the annual oration commemorating the Boston Massacre. Standing before a large, intense crowd in the Old South Meeting House, he gave a powerful and emotional speech condemning British tyranny. Many in attendance feared he would be arrested or even attacked afterward, but Warren spoke with calm courage. His words further inflamed patriot sentiment across Massachusetts. When fighting finally broke out at Lexington and Concord on April 19, 1775, Warren was in the thick of the action. Though he was not a soldier by training, he rode out to the battlefield and helped treat the wounded while the fighting was still going on. His bravery and leadership during those chaotic first days of the war earned him even greater respect among the Patriot ranks. In June 1775, the Massachusetts Provincial Congress appointed Warren as a major general in the militia. However, a major battle was already developing just outside Boston. American forces had fortified Breed's Hill and Bunker Hill in Charlestown, and the British were preparing to attack. Despite his new rank, Warren chose not to take overall command of the defenses. Instead, he rode to the battlefield as a volunteer, telling others that he would fight as a private soldier alongside the men. On the morning of June 17, 1775, the British launched their assault on the American positions. Wave after wave of redcoats marched up the steep, grassy slope under heavy fire. The Americans, low on ammunition, held their fire until the British were nearly upon them before unleashing devastating volleys. Joseph Warren fought in the front lines throughout the battle, moving from position to position and encouraging the men. By the afternoon, the British had launched their third and final assault. This time, they succeeded in overrunning the American redoubt. As the fighting turned desperate and hand-to-hand, Warren was among the last to retreat. According to several accounts, he was shot in the head while trying to rally the remaining defenders. He fell dead on the battlefield at the age of 34. The loss of Joseph Warren was a devastating blow to the Patriot cause. He had been one of the most respected and capable leaders in Massachusetts. George Washington, who arrived in Cambridge just days later, was deeply saddened by the news. Many believed that if Warren had lived, he might have become one of the great generals of the Revolution. In the years that followed, Warren's death took on almost legendary status. His body was later recovered and given a proper burial. His two young sons were raised with help from the Continental Congress, and his memory was honored throughout the war. Paul Revere, who had been a close friend, helped identify Warren's body after the battle. Joseph Warren never lived to see American independence. He died less than 2 months after the first shots were fired at Lexington. Yet in that short time, he had already become one of the most important figures in the early days of the Revolution. He was a doctor who became a statesman who became a soldier, and a soldier who gave his life on the battlefield. Unlike many of the more famous founding fathers, Joseph Warren did not survive the war to shape the new nation. His contribution was made in the critical opening months of the conflict, when the outcome was still very much in doubt. He helped organize resistance, inspired others with his words, and ultimately chose to stand and fight when he could have remained safely in the rear. Joseph Warren proved that leadership in a revolution is not only about giving speeches or signing documents. Sometimes it means riding toward the sound of gunfire and standing in the front ranks when the enemy comes. Though his life was cut short, his sacrifice helped strengthen the resolve of a people who were just beginning to understand the terrible cost of liberty. Joseph Warren, the physician who became a patriot, and the patriot who became a martyr on Bunker Hill.
Welcome back to the Wake Up America show. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. All right, let's get away from all the Pakistani Muslim rape gang stories, because we're going to just take a fully 180 away from that story. Click the like button if you're enjoying the content this morning. If today's the first time you've ever watched the Wake Up America show, click the follow button as well. Come back and join us for our live show 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. That's the Wake Up America show schedule. Glad you guys enjoyed the bonus content. We've been experimenting this week with the new anime mini documentaries. I know you guys were big fans of the Lego style, but this week we've upgraded it, and now we're doing stories of the American Revolution in an anime style. Looks like you guys enjoy it. So yeah, we might put them out together for you on a CD-ROM or an 8-track tape. Am I dating myself? My next guest wrote a whole book called That Joke Isn't Funny Anymore, because our culture decided comedy was a crime. He was the head writer and producer of the Webby Award-winning We the Internet TV, if you'll remember. He co-hosts the show Happy Hour Econ over on Apple Podcasts. So when the first trillionaire in human history got minted on Friday, this is the guy I want in the chair. Please welcome Lou Perez to the Wake Up America show. How's it going, Lou?
I'm doing well, and thank you for steering us away from that terrible, awful, horrific subject onto much lighter things. So yes. I appreciate that.
Let's talk about lighter things. We're going to talk about the Michelle Obama's a man joke a little bit later, but I loved your video about Elon Musk as a trillionaire. Everybody's already made the joke before I could about Elon Musk making our lives worse versus SNAP recipients, Lou, but it's not Elon Musk's fault that Elon Musk didn't steal the Cadillac converter out of my car. What has Elon Musk done to you, Lou, to make your life worse?
To make my life worse. Well, I shot a little video, basically, playing on that meme, like my character, he doesn't have a job. He doesn't have health insurance. He doesn't have savings, and his dick can't get hard. And it's all because of Elon Musk. And what's been so funny about the culture is that even with that fourth item in the list, people think my character is real, and that there's actually people out there who are, blaming their inability to get an erection on Elon Musk. So I think overall, I think I've actually made a lot more money from Elon Musk than he has ever taken from me. And so I'm happy with the relationship that Elon and I have currently.
Yeah, I'm really happy with the relationship I have with Elon because I post the rage tweets and then I collect the Elon bucks on my Twitter account. So no Snap recipient ever gave me an Elon buck.
Yeah. And it's so that meme that you're talking about that's going around, it's sort of like, what world does this person live in where they've never had a negative experience with a poor person? I mean, it might be that, are they that sheltered? Are they in, such a bubble where they actually, are surrounded by like, the wealthy people who are, making their lives a living hell? But yeah, I think for most people, especially like if you live, in a city, just something as simple as, being on a subway and, who's blowing the farts, it's probably the homeless guy there, or it's me blaming it on the homeless guy.
Yeah, exactly. Elon has never done one of those dance routines in the subway where it looks like they're going to kick you in the head and they're spinning around like crazy and you're just trying to get home from work. I've never seen Elon doing one of those annoying dance routines.
Yeah, it's never been showtime with Elon. And, I think it's something where, specifically with, SpaceX, doing so well and Elon becoming a trillionaire. I don't know. I look at it and I'm kind of happy about humanity because it's sort of like, well, I think what a lot of people don't understand is like that value didn't exist before he created it, obviously there's all the stories about people who are working for SpaceX who are becoming millionaires now. The idea you're working in a cafeteria, slinging, I'm sure they have tasty stuff at the SpaceX factory. And, you stay in it long enough and you turn around and boom, you got more money in your bank account than you ever dreamed of. I think that's awesome.
Now, the tax the trillionaire crowd, most people, we can't understand what a $1 trillion is. Maybe Elon's brain can understand it, but I don't understand what $1 trillion means, Lou. So it just feels as if it's got to be something. It's not an economic argument that the critics are making. Probably the best argument that you could make is that the reason why he's a trillionaire is because the Federal Reserve is inflating the currency at such a rate. So that's the best argument that you can make. But don't you think that this is really just something more visceral, that it's probably just sheer jealousy from these people, Lou?
Oh, always. I mean, with the people who talk like that, I always, wonder how soon before they start calling to liquidate the kulaks. Right. Because obviously that's where it's going, because there was a time where it was, the millionaire class is the problem. And then those thousandaires become millionaires. So then it's now the billionaire class. Mm-hmm. And well, according to them, the billionaire class is still the problem. And now it's going to be, the trillionaire class. But I mean, I just look at it. I'm somebody who, producing comedy and videos and stuff. I've employed people. I know you've employed people before. It just makes sense to me that somebody who's responsible for employing 160,000 or so people would be extremely wealthy. It just makes total sense to me.
Lou, you're like the Benjamin Franklin of the modern liberty movement, in the sense that like everybody likes you. You're really cool. You offer positive contributions. You have a really good attitude. And I'm like the John Adams of the liberty movement, obnoxious and disliked. So let's talk. Here, no story I think would be more perfect in illustrating that than our disparate reactions to the joke that was made at the UFC the other night that Michelle Obama is a man, and you did not like it, and I initially didn't like it, but then I thought about it and now I like it. So tell us why you didn't like the joke, Lou, and be the man that everyone likes for us for a reason.
Well, I just want to point out that you chose Benjamin Franklin in part because my receding hairline. So I'm a little upset with you on that front. Although me and Ben have something in common. We both hate German immigrants. We want to cut off all the Hun from coming over into the States. Yeah, I think like most people, I caught the clip online. I wasn't fortunate enough to watch the event live. Normally, UFC events take place on a Saturday. This was a Sunday. It was a special airing, special event. And when I saw the post fight and the guy yell out, Michelle Obama is a man, I just thought it was really retarded. I thought it was like, wow, you're deciding to do this at a celebration of the 250 years of our country at the White House. So I think there was one of the issues was like, I wouldn't have done that there. I think that was kind of retarded. Another thing that got me is kind of hack. When people were talking about comedy, it's a hacky thing to say. I think Joan Rivers said it best when she did it, but Joan Rivers has been dead for 12 years. So just to put into perspective how long this has been, this has been a thing. But more than anything, I was not necessarily surprised, but the response that I got after tweeting out my not being cool with it, the amount of people who came and I'm a snowflake. I'm a beta male.
You're a cuck.
I'm a cuck. I have low T. One guy actually, he said I had low T, and then I shared my testosterone levels, which I took a test last year and it was 837, which is actually pretty good.
Damn,
for a 43-year-old man at the time. It's probably much lower now because apparently I'm living on semen or whatever the hell they think about me. But it was just this idea of like, look. Just because I'm anti-woke and I voted for Trump and I like the UFC, it doesn't mean I have to applaud every single thing that happens, even if it's like a big middle finger to the left. So that was my issue with it. I haven't lost sleep. I just put it out there. I think a lot of people, they take the idea that if you tweet something out, then you're really thinking about it. It's really a big part of your mind. But something I would two kind of hypotheticals. One, I wonder what the response would be if, say, that same guy said, pointed at Trump is like, you're protecting the Epstein class and blah, blah, blah. Like if it was a different political, perspective, what the response would be. And then another thing was, let's remember this is the year that, the United States beat Canada in the Winter Olympics in one of the most amazing games that I'd ever seen in hockey. And after the game, you had Jack Hughes, the hero, the goal, the game winner. He scored, and his teeth are all jacked up and bloody, and he's got the American flag. I want you to imagine he's giving his post-game speech, and he decides to end it on Michelle Obama is a man. It would have. I think most of the country would have been like, that was at least fucking weird. I'm sorry. My apologies for cursing.
It's okay. It's legal here. Okay. So noted. And I think, I think that an old version of me probably would have agreed with you, Lou, but I'm a bit of a new man these days. I've reinvented myself in certain ways. In some ways I've carried over a lot of like my old beliefs, but then also I have some new beliefs. And part of me, I'm influenced by Javier Milei of Argentina, who he had this quote. He says, "Never give shit leftards an inch," which I'm deeply inspired by. And I think that libertarians in the United States, we're guilty of giving shit leftards an inch, more than an inch, much more than an inch. And so this is I actually did think deeply about this, which is probably weird for something where it's like literally a joke. But the reason why is because, the left wanted to cancel Donald Trump because of a joke that he made in private on a bus where he said, grab her by the what, right? This kind of locker room talk, which is the antithesis of the sort of hyper feminine, gynocratic leftist, the LGBTQ theology that they're trying to enforce on us culturally. And the way that I kind of looked at it when I definitely overthunk the joke is to kind of suggest that like now that like our male private spaces are invaded, our locker room talk essentially is not allowed to exist even in private spaces. A joke like that would be made in the locker room. Michelle Obama's a man, and we'd probably laugh about it if it were all men, and then we would all just kind of go on our way. But when you say something like that in public, back in the old days, you know, women would get offended, women get angry. Oh, how dare you say that? How dare you talk like that? But I kind of see it almost as a bellwether for the cultural pushback against the woke left, because even though the conspiracy theories obviously are ridiculous, and the Brigitte Macron, you know, over obsessing about penis, you know, whether or not it's a man or things like that, it's kind of a representation of culturally the pushback against the, I will say, hyper feminine leftist woke ideology, which seeks to stamp out any form of masculinity, even the stupid jokes that people like us. I mean, you're a comedian. You know what it means. Can you kind of understand how I would support it in that sense, as like an example of like, now that Trump's won, that culturally it's okay to be a man and to make stupid jokes again in a way?
I think that's a really solid argument that you made, and I don't disagree with it.
It's like Patrice O'Neill. You remember Patrice O'Neill
when he went on? Patrice is great.
Remember when he was on the Fox News interview with that feminist woman, and he made the joke about the one-eyed pirate, which is the joke,
the donkey punch,
punch, and all that stuff, and she was professionally angry. That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, no, I totally hear you, and I think it's funny because that one line and that, you know, the example that we're talking about does say a lot about where we are and what we're pushing back against. And I totally get it. And one thing that I wanted to say is, just because I didn't like it, and it was more of I didn't like it for the time and place. Like if it was like, you know, post fight with all the, you know, journalists and stuff, and all the guys are on the dais, you know, talking, I probably wouldn't, you know, it wouldn't have bothered me as much, you know. And by bothered, it bothered me enough to just say I didn't like it. But in the same light, I'm not calling for him to be fired. I'm not calling for the president needs to come out and, you know, and condemn this. Dana White needs to come out and condemn this. The whole UFC needs to, you know, drop to their knees and all that. It's like, it is what it is. And I totally understand that it is in response to the weaponization that we've seen over the past, you know, 10 or so years of, you know, taking every single thing out. It doesn't matter how lighthearted or, you know, benign it is, and using it against someone who might be to the right of Lenin. You know?
Yeah. Well, listen, you know, on the subject of like how intensely disliked I am amongst libertarians to a large degree, other than like yourself and a few others, you know, well, I'm going to be at Freedom Fest this year. It's going to be really awkward. I mean, the torches and the pitchforks have never been out like for strong. I mean, I ran for president, and when you run for office, especially when you're trying to like take something away from someone, which was like the Gary Johnson, you know, coronation year of 2016, people, they come for your head, man. And you got to expect that. You run for office, you put your name out there. It's like playing rugby. Like, expect to get your head kicked in, right? But never before have I experienced such a, I will say, you know, metaphorically violent reaction to my ideas than when I published a manifesto for libertarian nationalism. And you and I, we've had these conversations about it. We're going to talk about it when we go to Freedom Fest this year. What kind of reaction do you have when you hear the term libertarian nationalism? Do you have the same sort of angry, violent reaction that a lot of libertarians do, or maybe something else, something in between? Tell us your thoughts.
Well, I think I think off the bat, I'm interested, right? Because I mean, one of the things that I think of libertarians is the desire to debate, to argue, to have uncomfortable conversations. I mean, there are whole books written about really touchy subjects that, you know, mainstream people wouldn't necessarily touch, but libertarians are willing to, you know, to argue about it. You know, when you go to Freedom Fest and people aren't making eye contact with you, it might not be that they don't like you. It might just be that they're libertarian autistic and they don't, they're incapable of doing that. But something that I've that interests me about the libertarian nationalism as we've discussed it is I look around and you hear about like the Democratic Socialists of America reaching 100,000 members, right? You look around and you see, convoys going to Cuba. And I just feel like there's this resurgence of leftism, if not outright, communism happening in our country. And I don't like it. And I'm wondering who can do a good job fighting against it and pushing against it. And I think it is important for libertarians to not only, obviously you have these, foundational principles, but also to be willing to say, hey, America is awesome. And here are the reasons why it's awesome. And not to feel awkward about saying that, to come out and say it. So that's something that I think has attracted me to the conversation, and that I'm interested in having more of.
I love hearing you say that, because that is really, broadly speaking, exactly what I think is that, that America is a great nation. When you watch all of these people coming from all over the world and they're going to Buc-ee's, they're here for the World Cup, and they're talking about how great it is to go to some of our barbecue restaurants, and they talk about American culture positively. And they're shocked, Lou. So many of these Europeans are shocked when they see what the United States has to offer, because the media lies to them constantly about what the United States is like. We're a racist nation. We're a patriarchal nation. And then they come here and they realize how great Americans truly are. And I think that's worth preserving. I think that's worth defending. And I think within the framework of libertarian nationalism, that essentially what I'm trying to do is to create a warrior form of libertarianism. We're sort of a priestly class. You'll frequently find us with economic textbooks underneath our arm, but I didn't serve in the military, but I'm much more of a warrior type. I'm much more of a type of person who thinks that we need a vanguard. I spent an inordinate amount of my time reading books about war and about Bushido and about, samurai ethics and about, how to fight back using the tactics of the left against them. And I guess I just feel like there isn't a lot of muscle amongst libertarians, or even desire to fight back against the vanguard that the left has presented. And that's essentially what I'm trying to do, is to build a vanguard that has a more warrior ethos versus the priestly ethos. But this is what we're going to talk about when we go to Las Vegas together. I'm looking forward to this conversation. I guess you're going to be doing a comedy set there while we're there. Tell us what you're up to out there in Las Vegas on July 8th.
Yeah, so I'm actually part of the group putting together the first comedy festival at Freedom Fest. So we have a comedy competition. So if anybody would like to compete in a stand-up comedy competition, not only can you win $500, but you can also get a spot on the show Wednesday night with headliner Rob Schneider, Bridget Fedesi, Andrew Heaton, and myself. So it's a pretty, it's going to be a great show.
Amazing.
It's going to be really
how
cool.
Long how long do you get for the tryout?
I think you need 7 to 10 minutes. 7
to 10 minutes.
Yeah. So if you could do that, then you're good. So you can go to the Freedom Fest website to check that out. Then the following night, I'm doing a show called The Wrong Take with Lou Perez, where comedians and experts will get together to debate a topic. And I think you're hearing it here first, folks. The topic will be immigration is bad for libertarianism.
Watch out.
So we'll see how that goes over. And then there's also like panels and stuff. And the whole idea is to bring some levity, bring some humor to topics that we really care about, and to test out who has the strongest arguments. And look, if my arguments are weak, I hope I can back them up with some jokes. So
there you go. Because it's not who has the stronger arguments. It's it's not what you say that matters. It's how you made people feel, Lou. Just don't forget that one. I think I'm going to write a comedy set today. See if I can try my hand at a little stand up. 7 minutes. I could do that. All right.
Sweet.
All right, Lou, where can people go to get tickets to Freedom Fest so they can hang out with cool people like you and me?
Oh, is it freedomfest.com? Is that what it is? I hope so.
Valerie's gonna.
I'm a terrible promo man. Apparently, I'm an all right hype man, but
It's
terrible promo.
freedomfest.com. If people want to get $100 off, they could do so. Send me a DM and I'll send them a $100 off coupon. It is at freedomfest.com. They should go. They should read. They should book their tickets and join us July 8th through 11 at Caesars Palace. Caesars Forum in Las Vegas. Hang out with me, Lou Perez, Adam Carolla is going to be there. Rob Schneider is going to be there. I saw a bunch of big names have started to jump onto the thing. So I think it's going to be really fun, and I can't wait to see you in person, Lou. Hope you have a great day.
Likewise. Thanks, Austin.
Thanks, man. Have a good one. That's Lou Perez, ladies and gentlemen. Did we enjoy the show today? I thought it was pretty good.
I don't know her, but I'm assuming that she has nothing to do with funny. So I'm gonna speak as the expert on funny. Funny people should just be left to trying to be funny.
What if they're not funny?
Then you made a mistake. But how many unfunny jokes lead to like?
I don't know how many jokes about there are.
There's a lot, but your world is not funny. Your world is next on the big story. My world is people trying to be funny.
Well, I mean, you think it's okay to try to make jokes about?
I'm diabetic. I make fun of that. I'm a victim. I might lose a toe. But I'm trying to make fun of. I'm trying to make fun of anything I think I can make fun of.
I think the nation is just tired. There's a new mood in the nation.
What nation?
The nation. You know what? We're tired of things that are just
Is this the nation, this paper, and you? I'm not the nation. I'm just speaking for me and funny. You're speaking for the nation, or you're speaking for...
Yeah, you know why? Because I remember 6 years ago doing something against Anthony Openy because they were just so outrageous, and their violent images that they put out to women was just uncalled for. I think now people in this country
think they were trying to be
are
funny?
tired. You know what? I don't care if they're trying to be funny.
That's what I'm saying. Why are you in that business?
I've been to your show once, and it wasn't very funny being a woman.
It was
in your
hilarious.
Show, when you talked about...
That's why she doesn't like me. I was in the paper with her, and the joke is hilarious, called The Angry Pirate. And the lady who wrote it in her outrage didn't even know what it meant, and anybody who read it laughed because they know what funny... You're not living in the context of funny. You're living in the context of fire. She has an entire encyclopedia of her stance on it, but it's no passion involved. It's not a real... This is just what she has to say. We are outraged and fired and fired and fired. Name calling. I'm outraged. I am outraged.
You should be.
I am a fool. Now, if I called you a fool, the attempt is what I'm trying to fight for.
Yes.
The joke may or make funny jokes and unfunny jokes are come out of the same birth. That you don't know if anything is going to be funny. You should attempt to be able to make anything funny.
Don't you think a joke about is doomed to be not funny?
It's possible, but I've heard them.
You've heard a funny joke?
Her funny rape
I'd
jokes.
say a couple. Watch my HBO special. I'm pretty good at it.
Yeah, Patrice says that if you're having sex with a woman, doggy style, and if you hit her in the head just the right time.
No, it's ejaculate in her eye and kick her in the shin, and she walks around like, arg! It's the angry pirate.
No,
That's what she was trying to say.
A violent act of hitting her in the back of her head, her body.
It's called the donkey punch.
I gotta go, guys. Have a great day. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for unlocking the bonus content. I'll see you guys right back again here tomorrow. This is the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network.
In the town of Roxbury, Massachusetts, on June 11, 1741, a boy was born who would become one of the most respected and beloved leaders of the early American Revolution. His name was Joseph Warren. From a young age, Warren showed remarkable intelligence and ambition. He attended Harvard College and graduated in 1759. After finishing his studies, he became a physician in Boston, quickly earning a reputation as one of the finest doctors in the city. Tall, handsome, and eloquent, Warren was widely admired for both his medical skill and his powerful speaking voice. But it was not medicine that would define his life. As tensions between Britain and the colonies grew, Warren became deeply involved in the Patriot movement. He formed a close alliance with Samuel Adams and John Hancock. becoming one of the most influential voices calling for resistance against British authority. Unlike many others who hesitated, Warren believed early on that reconciliation with Britain was unlikely, and that the colonies might eventually need to fight for their freedom. In March 1775, Warren was chosen to deliver the annual oration commemorating the Boston Massacre. Standing before a large, intense crowd in the Old South Meeting House, he gave a powerful and emotional speech condemning British tyranny. Many in attendance feared he would be arrested or even attacked afterward, but Warren spoke with calm courage. His words further inflamed patriot sentiment across Massachusetts. When fighting finally broke out at Lexington and Concord on April 19, 1775, Warren was in the thick of the action. Though he was not a soldier by training, he rode out to the battlefield and helped treat the wounded while the fighting was still going on. His bravery and leadership during those chaotic first days of the war earned him even greater respect among the Patriot ranks. In June 1775, the Massachusetts Provincial Congress appointed Warren as a major general in the militia. However, a major battle was already developing just outside Boston. American forces had fortified Breed's Hill and Bunker Hill in Charlestown, and the British were preparing to attack. Despite his new rank, Warren chose not to take overall command of the defenses. Instead, he rode to the battlefield as a volunteer, telling others that he would fight as a private soldier alongside the men. On the morning of June 17, 1775, the British launched their assault on the American positions. Wave after wave of redcoats marched up the steep, grassy slope under heavy fire. The Americans, low on ammunition, held their fire until the British were nearly upon them before unleashing devastating volleys. Joseph Warren fought in the front lines throughout the battle, moving from position to position and encouraging the men. By the afternoon, the British had launched their third and final assault. This time, they succeeded in overrunning the American redoubt. As the fighting turned desperate and hand-to-hand, Warren was among the last to retreat. According to several accounts, he was shot in the head while trying to rally the remaining defenders. He fell dead on the battlefield at the age of 34. The loss of Joseph Warren was a devastating blow to the Patriot cause. He had been one of the most respected and capable leaders in Massachusetts. George Washington, who arrived in Cambridge just days later, was deeply saddened by the news. Many believed that if Warren had lived, he might have become one of the great generals of the Revolution. In the years that followed, Warren's death took on almost legendary status. His body was later recovered and given a proper burial. His two young sons were raised with help from the Continental Congress, and his memory was honored throughout the war. Paul Revere, who had been a close friend, helped identify Warren's body after the battle. Joseph Warren never lived to see American independence. He died less than 2 months after the first shots were fired at Lexington. Yet in that short time, he had already become one of the most important figures in the early days of the Revolution. He was a doctor who became a statesman who became a soldier, and a soldier who gave his life on the battlefield. Unlike many of the more famous founding fathers, Joseph Warren did not survive the war to shape the new nation. His contribution was made in the critical opening months of the conflict, when the outcome was still very much in doubt. He helped organize resistance, inspired others with his words, and ultimately chose to stand and fight when he could have remained safely in the rear. Joseph Warren proved that leadership in a revolution is not only about giving speeches or signing documents. Sometimes it means riding toward the sound of gunfire and standing in the front ranks when the enemy comes. Though his life was cut short, his sacrifice helped strengthen the resolve of a people who were just beginning to understand the terrible cost of liberty. Joseph Warren, the physician who became a patriot, and the patriot who became a martyr on Bunker Hill.
'Tis the year of our Lord, 1801. President Trump Jefferson casts his gaze o'er the sovereign Potomac and beholds a most wretched spectacle upon the waters. From the cursed shores of Tripoli and the welfare coffers of distant Minnesota comes the brazen Captain Ilhan Omar, commanding her fleet of Barbary pirates. She demands her ransom, billions in reparations. Yet one instrument of fortitude suffices, a steaming chalice of Jeffersonian Java, bold and unapologetic from for liberty shall. No more tribute to rogues, he thunders, and dispatches the Navy and Marines to smash Omar's fleet asunder. Trump Jefferson stands triumphant as Omar's plunder meets the end it deserved back in Minnesota. Jeffersonian Java, the coffee that gives true Americans the courage to refuse tribute and rebuke fraud, Procure yours at 4Liberty